What's the most misused Bible verse? Here's some other ways I could have asked this question. What's the most misunderstood verse in the Bible? Or what's the most misapplied verse? Or what's the most wrenched out of context verse? Or what verse is most often used to criticize Christians? But I think what's the most misused Bible verse really covers it all. But I could have asked, which verse from the King James translation is used most often by critics of Christianity? Here's the verse from the King James, Matthew 7:1, "Judge not, that ye be not judged." Sometimes I've heard it worded as, "Judge not, lest ye yourselves be judged." But most often, I guess, it's just abbreviated to "judge not." That verse is often used to criticize Christians as judgmental hypocrites when they state that Jesus is the only way to God. Skeptic, you may have thought that about Christians, or even said it. And seeker, you may have hesitated to believe in Jesus in fear that you may appear to be judgmental. And believer, you may have been silenced by fear of judging or fear of offending. Well, I'll start with this. That verse is very important because those are actually the words of Jesus. And the Greek word translated as judge in that verse does actually mean to judge or to pronounce judgment. But there's a part of this that's perplexing to me. Some people believe that judging others is wrong, and then use this verse to judge Christians. But think about it. In doing so, they're violating their own standard, believing that judging others is wrong while they themselves are judging others as wrong. Doesn't that seem to you to be just a bit conflicted? However, there's another problem in this. The problem is context. We shouldn't pick a phrase or sentence out of the Bible without looking at its context. The Bible is not a menu from which we pick and choose. Here's a comical example. It actually happened to me, a real-life example. You should have seen the shocked look on a city woman's face when she stepped into the middle of a conversation I was having with a farm couple in rural Connecticut. The first thing she heard was this: "We've got several children." Someone else was saying this, I wasn't. But this is what this other person said. "We've got several children, and when we run out of meat, we butcher one of them for food." That city woman sure was relieved to finally learn the context. The preceding conversation, the conversation that she had missed, was about raising cattle. The cattle, not the kids, were butchered. Sometimes context changes everything. So what was the context of "judge not, lest ye yourselves be judged"? Jesus was actually teaching about hypocrisy and consistency, not about judging. Listen to that verse with more of its full paragraph from the New American Standard. That's a good word-for-word translation. From the New American Standard. "Do not judge so that you will not be judged. For in the way you judge, you will be judged. And by your standard of measure, it will be measured to you. Why do you look at the speck that is in your brother's eye, and do not notice the log that is in your own eye? Or how can you say to your brother, 'Let me take the speck out of your eye,' and behold, the log is in your own eye? You hypocrite!" These are the words of Jesus. "You hypocrite, first take the log out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to take the speck out of your brother's eye." You see, Jesus was talking about hypocrisy, not about judging, not about being discerning. He wasn't saying, "Don't be discerning." And Jesus finished that paragraph with this: "Do not give what is holy to dogs, and do not throw your pearls before swine, or they will trample them under their feet and turn and tear you to pieces." How are you going to know who the dogs and swine are if you don't make a judgment call? What Jesus was saying was this: don't be a hypocrite, be consistent, discern, but don't discern and don't judge without first examining yourself and cleaning up your own act. Another part of this is important because of our political correctness paranoia. So many people are so worried about offending or being offended. If you're a skeptic, maybe you've felt offended by someone saying that Jesus is the only way to God, that he, Jesus, is the only road that actually reaches the top of the mountain. However, if it's true, it's not negatively judgmental. If it's true, it's just truth. If an oncologist, a cancer doctor, told me that I had cancer, that could and would upset me. But I would need to hear it. I really would. I would need to hear it. The truth would have upset me, but I would need the truth so that I could receive the cure. And be honest, no one turns down a cure because it's the only cure. And wouldn't you be deeply offended by a doctor who withheld your life-saving diagnosis because you might be offended? Or withheld it because it was the only cure? I can tell you for me, I sure would be. The ethical thing for the doc to do is to tell you or me the truth, to warn us. And here's another example. A 100-foot section of the Interstate I-95 over the Mianus River Bridge in Greenwich, Connecticut, collapsed in June of 1983. I was actually on that bridge just a few days earlier. When that section collapsed, 2 tractor-trailer trucks and 2 cars plunged into the river, killing 3 people. Fortunately, some courageous and caring drivers jumped into action. They ran toward oncoming traffic, waving their arms and shouting to stop other drivers. And you know, no one criticized them for warning others of the danger on the road ahead. In the same way, if the message of Christ is true, then those who warn you of the danger on your road ahead are only doing the moral and ethical thing. And one last thing. In today's uptight and angry world, we need to lighten up. We really do. We need to lighten up. Lots of people are having a bad day. I've had them. You've had them. We don't know what other people are going through. That person cutting you off on the road, letting the door shut in our faces, being rude, taking that parking space we were waiting for, not listening, they're most likely having a bad day, a bad week, maybe even a bad life. Maybe it would maybe it would really help if we treated them like we would like to be treated if we were in their shoes. Jesus said, "In everything, therefore, treat people the same way you want them to treat you." That's Matthew 7:12. And it's just 11 verses past that verse on hypocritical judging. I'm John Morris. I'll see you on the next Just a Question.